What's up, everyone? Welcome to Unmasked, where things are discovered, uncovered, brought to the light, and made known. I'm your host, Lamar Barry, coming live to you from PG County, Maryland. If you're interested in finding out about the untold stories behind being a college coach, this is the show for you. Being a former assistant men's college basketball coach for 16 years, there are so many untold stories behind the scenes in the life of a college basketball coach. Now, let's unmask them. Today's guest is a former head coach, a longtime assistant coach, a good friend, and an Alexandria, Virginia native, Bill Courtney. Now, Bill, I'm going to read about his bio. Bill is a outstanding player at Bucknell University, 88 to 92, where he actually was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2007. From there, he played professionally a couple of years overseas. And then he got into college coaching. He actually double-dipped a little bit as an assistant high school coach while he was playing professionally, especially playing over in Hong Kong. He was able to do that, but worked at American University for a year, and from there, he went on to Bowling Green, where he worked with who he works with now, Coach Larranaga. And then he went to George Mason with Coach Larranaga for 8 seasons. From there, he went to Providence College up in Rhode Island. And then he went to UVA and worked for Dave Lato for 3 years at the University of Virginia. In 09, 010 to Virginia Tech. And then he became a head coach at Cornell University, where he did a good job in the Ivy League. So I always say that I was a brown guy. So I'm Bill. Anytime you get in the Ivy League, you must be have some type of smart. So kudos to that. And then from there, he was assistant coach at DePaul after taking a year off, and then at Miami. So just finished up his first year back with Coach Larranaga. I just want to say welcome to the show, Bill.
Hey, Lamar, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. You reading that bio, it make me realize I've been in a lot of places, bro.
And you know what? It could be in a lot of places, but you still, you're still working. And, like I said, you were was assistant for 15 years before you got a head job, and then you were 6 years at Cornell. I know you're gonna get back one day. I think you're bright. I still say you're a young man, so you're a bright assistant coach. You're gonna be, once again, like I said, you can be a head coach again. I'm definitely sure of that. So let's get right to it, man. Let's get unmasked. Like, one of the first questions I like to ask Bill, and if you can go back to your early days, or it might have been another time, like it could have been at American, it could have been at Bowling Green, or however it was, but like, we all know that there's no handbook to being a college coach. No one tells you what to do when you first coming in. So especially for these young guys, so they can hear this, like, tell me about your first day, first week, first month, after things are done with human resources and orientation, like I said, especially when no one gives you direction. What's that like?
Yeah, it was very different for me, and it was a different time. Obviously, starting back in 1996 was my first college coaching job. And actually, the funny part is not on any of my bios. My first job was actually at Lafayette College, all right? So I was only there for about 2 weeks, all right? This is what happened. I was getting paid $2,000 for the entire year. So a lot of people that get into college coaching now want to get into it for the money or, big leagues, TV. Well, at Lafayette College, my job was going to pay me $2,000 for the entire year. All right. Fran O'Hanlon had just got the job. He was putting his staff together. And, I was like, man, how am I going to make ends meet? I didn't have any money. And so I actually went and interviewed and got a job to be a waiter at Chili's. All right. So I was going to be a waiter at Chili's and was going to be an assistant coach at the same time. All right. Fortunately for me, about 2 weeks into it, Chris Naki called me at American and said, do I want to come down and be the part-time assistant, where I was going to make a whopping $16,000 for the year. And so, that was the biggest thing, again, learning right from the beginning that if you're going to do this, you can't do it for the money. All right. You got to do it for the love of the game. You want to be around the kids. You want to teach. You love the game of basketball. And for me, that was what it was all about. And so as I first got into the business, I didn't know anything. Recruiting, on the floor coaching. I mean, I played, I knew how to teach my little brother how to do some things on the floor, but I didn't know how to teach college kids how to do things. And I was coaching Daryl Franklin, an American who was like 3-4 years younger than me, who I kind of played against, and so I was coaching these guys and I was friends with these guys. So it was very, very different in that regard. Recruiting, I always had a lot of energy. I was always excited. I always wanted to do it. So I just recruited everybody. I mean, I would recruit guys when I got to Bowling Green and got a recruiting position. I was recruiting guys that were like Michael Red, right? I was calling Michael Red every day at Bowling Green, not understanding why he wouldn't want to go to Bowling Green. I thought it was, hey, Mike, we got an awesome spot at Bowling Green. Don't worry about Ohio State or any of those places. You just come to Bowling Green, you can be the man. Well, that's all right because he was already the man, right? And so, again, you learn all these things. And, again, back then you didn't have the internet. You got on the phone. And when I worked for Coach Larinaga the first go-round, we'd be in that office at 7 a.m. after a lifting session with the team. And we'd probably leave about 9:30, 10 on the phone because, again, you had your campus phone right in the office there. So, there was no cell phones or anything like that. So, again, you had to make your phone calls from the office, or you had your little card so you can make those long-distance calls from home. All right, and I'm single. I don't really got no furniture at my house at 25, 26 years old. So I just sit in the office till 10 o'clock and make phone calls all day long, all night long. And so that's what you did. That's how you learn.
Oh, wow. Wow. And that's what people don't understand. Like, it's a grind, man. It is definitely a grind. This is going to be a two-part question because when I say that, like, you from an assistant standpoint, and then what happened when you were a head coach. So the first part of it is, what was your best and worst recruiting story?
I got so many stories, buddy. I got so many stories. Let me think about that for a second. I guess the first really big recruit we were fortunate enough to land at George Mason was a kid named Jesse Young. All right. So Jesse Young was a 6'10" kid from Canada. Very athletic, skilled, very good player. When I first saw Jesse, he was at the old 5-star camp, right? It was the last day of that July recruiting. I was on the way back from somewhere else. I said, let me stop and watch the 5-star all-star game. So Jesse was about 6'7" at the time, kind of uncoordinated, but he played really hard. He looked like he was going to grow. All right, we're going to recruit Jesse, okay? Me and Coach L said, we're going to recruit this kid, Jesse Young. That fall, he was a 12th grader in Canada. Now, in Canada, they go to 13 years of high school. They go to grade 13. So as a 12th grader, we were still allowed to bring him on an official visit. So that's what we decided to do, even though we knew he probably wasn't going to graduate till after year 13. All right. So Jesse come down. Now, by the time he comes down for his visit that October, he's about 6'9". I'm like, Coach, we got to try to get this guy, right? So boom, we bring him down for the official visit. That next summer, Jesse goes up to some camp. It was up in like Niagara Falls or something like that. And you got all the top coaches there. Jesse goes off. He's 6'9", 6'10" now, and he just goes off. So everybody in the ACC, the Big East, all these places started recruiting Jesse, right? And so I'm like, man, how the heck are we going to get Jesse now? Now, he don't care. He don't know the difference between George Mason and Duke, really, because he don't watch college basketball. He watches hockey on TV, right? So he don't know the difference. And so we go through this recruiting battle with Jesse. Now he's in grade 13, all right? So now he's whittling down his list of school. He's got Boston College. He's got Dayton. He's got Virginia. He's got all these people recruit him, all coming to the house for home visits. Back then, everybody did home visits. You go visit the kid at the house. So you got, West Virginia, Syracuse, all these, great nasty known coaches going to visit. And he keeps telling everybody, hey, George Mason's my favorite school because he took a visit. We had got close with him. Me and Coach L got really close, he and his family. And so he keeps saying George Mason's favorite school. So immediately, everybody starts taking shots. Like, man, what do you think about? You can't go to George Mason. They're in the CAA. They got a terrible team because we hadn't been good yet. And everybody's killing George Mason. So me and Coach L decided to do something creative. So when we went to the visit, we had our sport coats on because you wore the suit to the home visit. And once we took our sport coat off, we had put on big piece of paper. We had targets on our back. So we had a picture of a target on our back and said, since everybody's taking shots at us, we figured we put our targets on our back and let them go ahead and be a little bit easier for them. And it kind of broke the ice. And from there, it was great. He went on a lot of great visits, but we were able to get him. And, it was tremendous get. So I think that's probably my favorite recruiting story as an assistant.
That's actually a great one. And the worst, you have a worse one or like, anybody like you like, because they're always tough, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, you put in a lot of time and things like that. Like, any worse one you can think of?
Oh, I'll give you one. I just right to the top of my head. There was a kid named Marquee Perry I saw out in Vegas when I was at George Mason, right? And I'm working Marquee and his mother and, you know, really working the high school coach and everybody. And so we go to the again. This is how you mess up. I was just very enthusiastic, all right, but I didn't really understand all the bases you have to touch, all this stuff. So this one AAU wasn't that big either. Now it wasn't a big like it is now with the EYBL and the grind and all that stuff. And so we get to the house out in Chicago for the home visit, right? And his assistant AAU coach is sitting there. I'm not gonna say his name because he's still coaching now. And he's a big, imposing guy, about 300-some pounds, right? Now, we don't even really recruit Chicago like that at George Mason. So we go out there, me and Coach L go for the visit. We start to talk. Literally, we talk for about 1 minute. And the guy goes, hold up, Coach, I need to stop you right now. Before we go any further, I want to know why y'all haven't called me. I had no idea who the guy was. He sat there and blistered us for 30 minutes with every F-bomb, every you are this and you are that for 30 minutes. I'm sweating. I'm just, oh, it's amazing. Oh, it was unbelievable. Give you one worse than that. That was Marquee Perry. Jason Mascara, I know you know this name, right? So this is a good one. I got to give you a story. I know we might run out of time on this story alone, but I got some good ones, all right? And so we get the job at George Mason, right? I'd been at Bowling Green for a year with Coach Larinaga. In the beginning of my tenure at Bowling Green, I drive out to D.C. for a recruit visit, the Charlie Weber tournament. All right, they had the tournament with all the good East Coast teams, East Coast AAU teams. All right, so in September of that year, Bowling Green, I drive out for the Charlie Weber. Coach L flies. He flies Southwest because we ain't got no money at Bowling Green. That's why I had to drive. So I had to drive that 8 hours from Bowling Green, Ohio, out to Maryland for the tournament. So I go the night before, and I'm gonna pick up Coach L the next day. Now, mind you, I only been on the job probably 2 weeks. I just got the school car, right? Actually, Coach Gillian, the other assistant, I took his car because it was nicer. He had the Altima, I had the Nissan Sentra, so I took the Altima out to DC. So the night before, I get in a car accident, hit and run. The airbag implodes, so I got the airbag out, the cars didn't, there's smoke and dust all over the car, right? I go to pick up Coach L at BWI with the car like that. He looks, I've been on a job for 2 weeks, Lamar. He comes up to me and says, DC, what happened? I'm like, man, Coach, I got in a car accident last night. All right. So, all right, before the tournament starts, it started about 6 o'clock. So I say, look, I got the kid, Jason Mascara, he's gonna work out at 3 o'clock up at Montgomery College, right? So we go to see Jason work out. Now, Jason's sick at the time. All right. So Jason is sick. And Jason, even on his best days, he loves to dribble. His nickname was Pat Pat, right? And so Jason can handle that ball, but he loves to dribble. So we go in the gym. Jason's sick. It's about 120 degrees. Jason dribbles the ball all over the place and plays absolutely horrible. All right. So Coach L looks at me. Now, mind you, I don't really know Coach L like that. I only been on the job 2 weeks. I done wrecked the school car. He looks at me real slowly, and you know how he talks, Lamar. He looks at me, he goes, BC, can you tell me what you think a good player is? And I'm sitting there, I'm telling you, he's pretty good. Like the last time I saw him, he was good, right? So fast forward 8 months from now, we get the George Mason job that April. We got like 5 players on scholarship, and we need a point guard. And Coach L comes up. He said, Coach, ABC, can we find a point guard? I'm saying, well, we still go get Jason Mascara. And that's who we ended up signing with Jason Mascara, all-league player, led us to the NCAA tournament. Unbelievable story.
Listen, I still argue, like, I remember watching them up LaSalle, there was elementary, they used to be out in D.C., him and Steve Francis, Wink, they were playing together, and, like, you couldn't tell me that Jason Mascara wasn't better than Steve Francis. Like, Jason was Steve was just way more athletic, but from a basketball standpoint, Jason Mascara was really good, man. And I don't think people like, he was great for you guys as well, so. I like Jason. I always loved Jason Mascara. And I'm asking, this is part 2 of it because this is from your head coaching days. Do you recall anything where an assistant did a great or a horrible job recruiting? And you can choose either one. You know, it's not both, but like you can choose, it could be a great one or a horrible one.
Well, I'll tell you this. One of the things that happened to me as a head coach is right away, I hired a terrific staff. Now, in Ivy League is different because you only get 2 full-time assistants and 1 volunteer assistant. I know you spent time there, so you know. All right. So my 2 full-time assistants at the time one was Jay Larranaga, Coach Larranaga's son, and who's now the top assistant for the Boston Celtics and will be an NBA head coach in the next 2 or 3 years. So obviously that was a very, very good hire, right? Now he only stayed like 2 months because he left and went to become a head D-League coach. The other guy I hired was Marlon Sears, who's now just recently took the head coaching job at Amherst, which is probably one of the top Division III jobs in the country. Longtime assistant at Columbia, was head coach at Montclair State. He's my guy. And right away, because he had spent time at Columbia, he knew how to recruit the Ivy League. So we were able to, kind of hit the ground running recruiting-wise because Marlon was terrific with finding all those guys, those kids with grades, and really scouring the country and finding the right guys that will fit Cornell. So he was terrific. Heading towards the end of his tenure at Cornell, he was with me for 5 out of my 6 years there. But towards the end of the 4th year, we got a tape on a kid. He was a junior in high school, all right? And I'm watching the tape, and I'm like, man, this kid's really good. He's from Charlotte, North Carolina. He's like, averaging 20-something a game, like scoring points. And I know you know the name Lamont Morgan, right?
Yeah.
Right? Lamont
Yep,
down from D.C., from the DMV. So I said, it's Lamont's son, man. I said, oh, okay, I know him. I know his wife, everybody. So, I started recruiting the kid, go down to see him. I'm like, man, this kid is really, really good. So fast forward to the fall, all right? Go down to see him again. Nobody's recruiting the kid. Like, Lamont, nobody's recruiting. Division II's looking at him saying that, he's not that good. And I'm like, Marlon, are we seeing something different than everybody else? Like, why is nobody recruiting? Now, again, in the Ivy League, one of the things you have to battle is the financial aid situation. There's no scholarships. And so they would have had to pay a little money if he decided to come to Cornell. So I'm thinking even if a good Division II offers Lamont's son, Matt Morgan's his name, he's going to take that because he's going to school for free. And so I'm begging him, please, Lamont, come on, man, you got to figure this out, a way to do this or whatever. And, the whole time thinking at least somebody in Division II is going to offer him. Nobody ever offered him a scholarship. All right, he comes up to our league camp. He falls in love with Cornell, comes on the visit, said he wants to be. Lamont and Parrish figure out a way for them to pay it, and he decides to come to Cornell. Well, he's the all-time leading scorer and averaged 20 as a freshman. And so that's an unbelievable story right there.
Wow, I like that. Now, speaking of that and going to the head coach, and so people understand this, you've been preparing for this all your life. You were named the head coach, at Cornell. You're excited to have your own program. You go to your desk and what happens next? What happens over the next few months? Because you've been prepared for it. You prepared for it, now you get it, and it's okay, what happens over the next few months? What's that?
Yeah, the first thing is kind of getting your ship in line and what you want to do and how you want to run your program. Again, you have all these plans when you're in interviews. You make these booklets up and you're telling them, hey, this is what we're going to do about recruiting. This is what will be about fundraising. This is what we're going to do about, current players, our style of play, all those things. So you're always prepared for those things. So now you're sitting there okay, now I got to start putting some of this stuff into action. All right. And again, fortunately, I had Marlon at my side. So immediately, the first thing we did was call the current players, the players that were returning. Because I didn't recruit them. They didn't come to Cornell to play for me. They came to play for Steve Donahue, who had done an absolutely marvelous job at Cornell. All right, an unbelievable job. And so I called all those guys. I went to visit the incoming freshmen to meet their parents, make sure they were okay with me being their son's coach. Traveled the country to do that because they were from all over the place. That tends to be the case in the Ivy League. I immediately got on the phone with recruits. I remember the first recruit I called was a kid named Sean Miller, who was a junior from Cleveland. Ended up being a very, very good player for us and ended up being a very good player for UConn in his 5th year also. But immediately got on the phone with recruits, and Marlon had a list of guys for me to call from his Columbia days. And I said, we want to recruit better guys. And so we were on the phone with those guys all day from, sun up to sundown. We're on the phone. We're doing whatever we can with workouts and stuff like that. But in the Ivy, you can't work them out in the summer. And so you're preparing for the fall as to what you want to do, getting all your stuff, your ducks in a row and all that stuff together. And so you got to meet with the alumni going down to New York City to talk to a Cornell alumni group, which is extremely illustrious, can be a little intimidating when you talk to people that are so powerful in every aspect of life. And so you're speaking to all the alumni, you're friend raising, as you call it, and trying to have more guys that are going to contribute to your program and help you out. There's just a multitude of things that come on your desk every day, and it almost takes care of itself. You don't even get to really pick and choose what you want to do. Stuff is chosen for you, and then you have to kind of do it.
Yeah, and that's why that's why I asked that question, because, everybody prepares for everybody like works their butt off. You think you're ready until, oh man, now it's my program. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do I do next after you get the job? So
yeah,
great insight.
The basketball part is actually the easiest part, right? It's the running of the program that's the hardest part. And fortunately for me, having had worked for Coach Larinaga for 9 years, that was a little bit easier because he's one of the best I've ever seen in running a program. And so I kind of followed that blueprint a little bit, so that helped me a lot. Awesome.
This is going to be a two-part question too, just because of what you've done, and then like when you were a leader. You've been in this long enough that sometimes when you do your best scouting report, you could play your worst game, and sometimes you do your worst. Well, I'm gonna say worst, but like it's not as great as some others, and you end up winning games. We all know it comes down to the players, how they execute, and all that. But like, do you remember anything that stand out? Like, what was your best and your worst scouting report?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, though. You can do the best scouts in the world, and it might not matter. Like I had Duke this year. As my scout, I had Duke. And so I was extremely prepared, watching 10, 15 games on film, breaking down every single guy. I mean, really just locking in, focusing on every guy. Because I had done it in Virginia. But, back in Virginia, we had Sean Singletary and J.R. Reynolds, who were really good. And so we beat them just by ball screening, right? But this year, its Duke team was very different, trying to figure out a way to stop Vernon Carey, coming up with all kinds of different ideas. And you know what? For the first 5 minutes, it was a great scout. And I had all the plays named. As soon as they called the play, I knew what it was and all that stuff. And then they just got on a roll and went on a 22 run, and that was it. It was night-night, right? So it was tremendous scout, and I felt like I really, really prepared our team to play that game. But it really, really didn't matter because Duke was just that good. Conversely, when we were at George Mason in our second year there, we had Jason Mascara, a big guy named George Evans. We were really, really talented. And so we didn't do a lot of scouting. We would go over the opponent one day before the game, and we were just going to do what we were going to do. We were going to press, we were going to zone press, we were going to man press, we were going to trap, we were going to run around the place and do what we do. And so it became one of those things where our scouting report really was about us. And when you have more talented teams, that tends to be the case. I mean, you want to do your due diligence and make sure you understand your opponent. But at the same time, at George Mason days, when we had that very, very good team and we won 10 games in a row to put us in the NCAA tournament, we were just on a roll. We didn't have to scout.
Awesome. And that's when you get a pulse of your team. You understand that, as you go on. Now, saying that part too, like, is there any story that sticks out about an assistant coach with a scout report where you had to what are you doing? Or like, it was like, yo, man, you really nailed that scout report. Like anything that sticks out with an assistant that you might have to get on them about. What you say?
Well, I think as an assistant and a head coach, one of the things that happens. I think probably this is probably universal. When you're doing a scout as assistant, and you say a guy can't shoot, all right? I never say that anymore. I never talk about a guy can't shoot. I may say his percentages are not good right now. He has a funny looking jump shot. He's a little inconsistent with his shot, but I refuse to say he can't shoot. Because when I was at Virginia, all right, and working for Coach Leto, when I would say a guy couldn't shoot and he would make a 3 or 2, you know what's coming next, Lamar. You're going to get bombed out for that. You're going to get cursed out for that every time. As a head coach, I must say, even though I know that's the case, because I knew that from being an assistant, when you say a guy can't shoot, he better not make any 3s because I'm going to be all over you for making that assessment that he couldn't shoot. And so I say that's one of the things that always is kind of universal and sticks with me is that you got to be careful with your wording, especially when you talk about with players too, because players can take it a certain way. Oh, you can't shoot, I might back up. Well, no. You still have to respect him. All right, you still have to honor that he's a Division I player and guard the guy a little bit. And so I think that's one of the things that you learn over time in scouting. Again, as a head coach and an assistant, you get better and better. I mean, this year for me, I did a lot of the scouts here in Miami, and my knowledge of how to do a scout and making it a little bit easier for myself has just grown through 20 plus years of coaching.
Awesome. Now, like you said, you've been in it. You head coach for 6 years, and long time assistant. Biggest challenge you think you've experienced since you've been in college coaching?
Yeah, I would say bar none, injuries, because that's something that you just can't control. You can try to prepare for it, but again, you can't control it. Even dating back to our days at George Mason, we had it rolling. We went to 2 tournaments in our first 3 years. I mean, we were winning at CAA every year. And then in our 4th year, Jesse Young got hurt. Raul Heine got hurt. All these guys started getting injured. And it took, again, a program that finished 1st or 2nd for 4 or 5 straight years. Now, all of a sudden, we're in 4th or 5th because of injuries. All right. When I became a head coach, that's when it hit me more than anything. And again, never going to be one to make excuses, but we lost more guys to injury than I've ever experienced in my whole coaching career or any team that I've seen. I mean, we had times where, we had a roster in the Ivy League. You can have as many as you want on a roster. We had a roster of 21 guys, and we were down to 7 healthy bodies at times at Cornell. And again, there's nothing you control. My 1 year, my 4th year at Cornell, we had all 4 starters were injured, all right? My 3rd year, which led into the 4th year, we were actually a half a game behind Harvard with a chance to win the Ivy League title. We had 4 of our next 6 at home. We had already beat 3 of those teams on the road. So we were rolling at the time. We won 3 games in a row. We were rolling. In that game, I lost my starting 2 guard. I lost my starting power forward. The next game, we lost our starting point guard, and we lost our 6th man. We lost the next 6 games and finished in 6th. You just can't control it. So I'd say injuries are the thing that stick out to me more than anything that can affect you, that there's nothing you can really do about it.
So true, so true. And like I said, do you ever find, like everybody know you are, they knew you as a relentless recruiter. I saw you firsthand as a coach, not just being a recruiter. I saw the other things from a basketball standpoint, on the floor, coaching, that type of stuff, which led to you being a head coach. But do you ever find there are things about you that people misunderstand? Like, what are they?
Yeah, I think that, there's a great misunderstanding a lot of time. If you get labeled, right? You get labeled as a recruiter or a coach. Very rarely for assistant coaches, especially assistant coaches of color, being honestly, do you get labeled as both. And that's the tough part. And that's, part of the issue as to maybe why some, people of color are not getting these head coaching opportunities, right? Because you get labeled as a great recruiter, but can he coach? I remember at the time when I was an assistant coach, I was assistant with around the same time as Charlton Young, who's now at Florida State. And we were known as relentless recruiter. We recruited against each other, right? When he was at Tennessee, Chattanooga, and I was at George Mason. He was trying to bang heads with ACC and Big East teams and really recruiting hard. And I remember him saying it to me one time, hey, everybody just meets me as a recruiter. I got to change how I'm perceived in order to get a head coaching job. All right. And he ended up doing that. He ended up getting a head coaching job at Georgia Southern, about the same length of time that I was the head coach at Cornell. And so I think that's a really difficult thing to overcome, especially for a lot of assistants, is learning how to kind of rebrand yourself to make sure people know you are a very good basketball coach, that you have that kind of acumen. Because to be honest, again, it can be some good old boy network with guys that have been in the business for a long time and may not look at you the same way they look at another guy. And I think that's something that you're constantly fighting and you're constantly trying to improve. I'd say for me, again, now having been a head coach and had a great opportunity, I know for me now, I continue to learn every day. I think that's extremely important, is to continue to learn. Learn not only, again, on the basketball floor, but learn about things off the floor. Like I said, how you run a program, how do you treat people, how do you do this, how do you do that? I think the more knowledge you gain, the better off you are. So now when there's some things that you can't control, you're able to fight those battles a little bit better.
Awesome, man. Like, we all educated in this business. You've had some great kids, and they've gone on not just playing basketball, but things in life. Like, what would you try to teach your players besides basketball?
Yeah, when I recruit guys, I always say the same thing, especially when I was the head coach at an Ivy League institution, all right? So we always say you want to dream the biggest dream you could possibly can, right? You want to be in the NBA? Why not? Why not have that dream? Shoot for it. Go hard, work every day, get after it, do all the things you can, all right, to live that dream, to accomplish that goal. But don't just live that dream on the floor, all right? You got to live that dream in life also. Because no matter how good you are, that ball's going to stop bouncing. We know that, right? So your life after basketball is going to last a whole lot longer than your life in basketball. You can play for 15 years, but you're still 37. Hopefully you got a long life after that. So now what are you going to do to prepare yourself for that life after basketball? And that's always the biggest thing I say to every guy. Now, again, when I was in the Ivy League, oh my gosh, the opportunity that present themselves for these guys after college. I mean, I talk to all those guys still today, and the things that they're doing as far as leaders in every sector of the country, of the world, is unbelievable. So you were easily able to sell that. You know, once people understood that, it's like, man, why wouldn't I go to the Ivy League? You know, and I'm like, man, I want to send my son to the Ivy League, right? You know, and so always, you know, make sure that you're getting that education. Make sure you're doing what you need to do to prepare yourself for life after basketball. And that's a big part of deciding where you want to go to college is, again, putting yourself in a position so you can have choices. You always want to have choices. You don't want to be in a situation where you're stuck on this lane. You want to be able to choose this, or this. And then that usually works out the best.
So true, man. So true. Now, what qualities did you look for in hiring assistant coaches?
You know, first thing is hardworking. Again, working for Coach Larry Nagle, you learn how to work hard, right? I mean, you work for some dudes in the band, you work very hard. I know you know, right? And so hardworking becomes important. And self-starters, all right? You know, you can't be a guy that has to be pushed. You can't be a guy I got to constantly be on, you know, about your work ethic or all that stuff. You got to be a self-starter. Again, you do your job, most guys are going to leave you alone. So hardworking is very important. I think loyalty becomes very, very important also, because you want to make sure guys are on the same page that you are. You can't afford to hire someone, an assistant coach, that's going to be giving a different message to the players that you are, right? So if I, you know, have to scold a player or get on a guy, and you coming behind me and saying, "Oh, don't worry about that, coach don't know what he's talking about," you know, that's not going to work. That's not going to work at any level. So loyalty becomes extremely important. Intelligence becomes important, you know, because again, like you said at the beginning, you don't know how. There's no handbook for this. There's no way you can understand all the things that go into college basketball. So you have to be able to learn. Again, it's not book intelligence per se. It's not necessarily, am I going to get 100 on this math quiz? But it's about being able to pick up things, learn the business, learn about people, learn about your players and how you teach them and how they learn. I think that becomes very important. So I'd say, yeah, hardworking, loyal, and intelligence, really go into that a lot.
That's good stuff, man. I mean, I like that. Now you got your team. This, you know, first time to start practicing. Like, what was that first practice like? You got the whistle now. You really in control, you know. So and then what was the first game when you're finally controlling your program? What was those two things like?
Yeah, it's interesting too, because, you know, I took over Steve Donahue at Cornell. Again, he had an unbelievable amount of success. Took over for a Sweet 16 led Ivy League team. Again, people don't understand what an amazing job that was, and especially at Cornell, who had like 5 winning seasons in the last 50 years, and he took them to the Sweet 16. So I had some returning players. So my challenge again now was to, you know, implement my system into some guys who had a lot of success in the old system. So that was a little bit of a challenge, all right, convincing those guys that, you know, again, the way that Coach Donahue did it was great, but this way can work also. You just have to buy in, all right? Whatever way we choose to do it, that's the way we're going to do it, because that's my decision, right? So again, making sure that, you know, those guys were going to kind of buy into what I was doing. And it's a process, because they have to gain trust. They have trust in a certain way it was done. So you have to make them earn the trust that, you know, make sure that they understand that, hey, you can coach basketball also. And so, you know, that went on throughout the fall. But I'd say, you know, our first game, we went on the road at Albany. And again, they had a Sweet 16 team, but a lot of those guys that graduated 3 players of the year. Guys have been Ivy League player of the year. And so we had a whole new system where we were going to pressure defensively. We were going to run set plays on offense, do all kinds of different things than they had done before. And we played at Albany. Will Brown had a great team. They had been to the NCAA the year before. Had a lot of success. And we were able to get the win. It was extremely emotional. I had all my family members there, 50, 60 to 100 guys, people there from the family. I was sweating through my suit. I mean, this, everything, out of control on the sideline, shirt untucked, everything, right? But I really felt like a head coach right then. I mean, that was the moment it hit me. To get that win was awesome. To share it with my family was unbelievable. I felt like a head coach. And then later that year, we actually played University of Pennsylvania, Penn, down at the Palestra. Again, historic gymnasium, Penn tradition of being an Ivy League power. And again, 2 hours up the road from DC, so all the family came up, and my wife's family's from Philly, so it was we had to buy a whole bunch of tickets for that game. And our team played exactly like we wanted them to play. It wasn't a perfect game, but they played the way that we had taught, and you could tell at that moment they believed in what we were doing, and that really was, I felt like, was my program.
Awesome. And I was in the league when Steve Donahue was there for 2 of those years. I know we never beat them when I was there. They had some really good guys, like you said, when I was at Brown. And I still got to go back to that. I coached against you 4 times at Virginia, when you were at Virginia Tech, back-to-back years, and then 2 times when you were at Cornell and I was at American. I'm 1-3 against you, man. I just had to throw that out there. But
hey, Lamar, that was a great win at AU too. That was a great win.
That was a great win. What did you have to give up to achieve your current level of success? I don't think people understand, like, this business. I mean, it's tough, but like, what did you have to give up?
Yeah, I gave up a lot, to be honest. I mean, and again, I guess, if you look at like Mike Bray, like, he's like the best dude ever. He can remain normal and still be an elite coach. A lot of the guys in this business are normal, all right, because you don't live a normal lifestyle, right? You miss birthdays of your kids, right? You're going to miss them. Your wife's going to be mad at you when you've been on the road for 2 weeks and then you go home for a second and say, I got to go see this kid up in Omaha, Nebraska, right? And so people don't understand that, the things you give up for the love of the game of basketball and to being a college coach is a lot. I mean, you don't have a normal life. Like, they asked us, again, all this COVID stuff going on, you had to use vacation days, right? And I'm like, what is a vacation? What is that, right? Because, I can remember, back in the old days, June 20th was the day that you could call seniors for the first time. So I remember, like, we had to get all our hookups for vacation. So my wife and maybe my sons were really young age, so we go down to Disney World. Now, we had the discount passes, and we really didn't even go to the park half the time. We just stayed at the hotel at the pool because the hotel was a hookup for my friend, right? So, but every year on June 20th for like 4 or 5 years straight, we'd be in Orlando. And it was the same routine. I'd wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'd make phone calls till noon. I'd go hang with the family for about 2 hours, and I'd get back on the phone from 2 to 10. And this is on vacation. Again, so unless you have a family, a wife in particular, that understands what this business is about, it can be very, very difficult. Because again, the time commitment that you put into this thing, it has to be about love. Because if you don't love this, there's no way you can do it.
So true, Bill. So true. Like, I'm gonna ask you this, because this is like one of those. It's a kind of a funny one. Could be sad. I don't know, but like, what is the strangest thing a player has done outside of the basketball court? Because I know you've got some guys that's like, you've had some guys through the years. Like, what's the strangest thing a player's done?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the better question would be, what is a guy not done? Because you see a little bit of everything in this business. And again, some of it can be very serious, where guys may be in trouble with authorities or done something wrong in the dorms, and some of it could be funny. Where they, done something just stupid, just childish. And again, what happens, I think a lot of the times, is you forget that they're 18 to 22 years old because they look like grown men. Everybody expects them to be grown men coming out of high school. And so you expect them to have a certain maturity level, but they don't. I remember as a player, I was pretty silly. If I think about how immature I was as a player, you know, you can go back to all the silly things you did in college. I'd say I probably did more silly things than my players did, you know. But I think that the most, when I was assistant at Virginia, we basically lost one of our players for like a week. Like we couldn't find him for a week. Like literally for a week, we could not find him. It was right after the season. So it was like still we were working out and lifting weights and all that. And Lamar, we couldn't find him for a week. And it turns out he was in his apartment the whole time. And we finally had somebody kind of go down there and open the door for us. They had to get the authorities to open the door for us. So we finally found him. So, and he acted like nothing happened.
Like, wow.
Gotta leave the names out. Gotta leave the names out.
I know. That's on you. I'm not asking for names. You did the right thing on that one. Biggest accomplishment you've experienced since you've been a college coach?
Yeah, probably a couple of them. Probably that first year at George Mason where we won the CAA, went to the NCAA tournament. That was huge. That was the first time as a coach that I'd been to the NCAA tournament. We got smacked in the first round by Cincinnati, though. I mean, it's Kenyon Martin and that crew just smacked us. But that was huge. Being named the head coach at Cornell was obviously a very, very big accomplishment. Winning the ACC title at Virginia. And it was a really big deal back then because Virginia only had the ACC titles during the Ralph Sampson era during that time. And we were able to win the ACC title in Dave's second year, regular season conference championship. And so, you know, I would say that those three things are the biggest accomplishment I've had.
Awesome. And this is kind of like on the hilarious side a little bit. You got to think. What movie or TV show title best describes your week?
Best describes the week, huh? Helter Skelter. I think that's a book by like the crazy dude Charlie Manson and crew, but Helter Skelter. I mean, again, because every week is so different, you just don't know what to expect. It's like that old Forrest Gump line, like in the movie, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get, right? I mean, that's college basketball. That's my life. That's my world with the kids, awesome. And the wife, and everything. Yeah, it's like a box of chocolates. So yeah, Helter Skelter.
Awesome, man. Like, what's your favorite word or phrase you use, like on the court, or like it could be just anything you like to use in life? Like, what's your favorite word or phrase?
Let's go. Yeah, that's my. You know, as if you can't tell, I got a lot of energy, right? And I stay positive as I can be at all times. I try not to let anything get me down because I'm truly blessed in this life, right? So when little things happen that may be disappointing or others might see as depressing or whatever it is, I try to stay positive because, again, life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it, all right? And so I'm going to stay positive with this thing. So I'm always talking about let's go, all right? Whether it's getting on the floor, being on time, hyping everybody up. I'm always saying, let's go. I probably say that to my kids all the time. Let's go, get up in the morning. Let's go, man. Let's go, you know? And so I'd say that's my number one phrase. Let's go.
Good. Simple, but powerful. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Yeah, a lot of advice in my life has come from Coach Larinaga. It's funny how life becomes full circle because when I went to work for him at 26 years old, I was really green behind the ears and didn't understand a lot. And he has taught me so much, not only in the game of basketball, but in life, how to deal with family situations, all kinds of different things. And one of the things that he always says, and he's said this for years and years, is be quick but not in a hurry, right? And it relates to basketball stuff, okay? You want to do things well and you want to be doing them at a great pace, but you don't want to go so fast that you get out of control, right? You always want to be in control of what you're doing on the floor. But again, in life also, all right, you want to do things well, you want to do them quick and efficiently, but you don't want to do them so quickly that you forget something, all right, that you may not see something, all right, that you leave something behind, all right? So you always want to be quick and efficient, but you never want to be in a hurry. Hurrying is someone else controls. It's like what we want to do defensively. We want to pressure you and make you hurry and get out of your offense and do something different than you normally do. That's being hurried. If you're doing it quickly and concisely and you're doing it efficiently, that's a lot different. So that's one of the sayings that I've always took with me, no matter where I'm at, is be quick but not in a hurry.
Good stuff. Coach Larinaga. He dropped gems all the time.
All the time.
Listen, so, you know, like you got a lot of energy. You mean, so a lot of stuff probably don't get you down. Like, especially man, you come home, beautiful wife, great kids, and you get a chance to see them. But like sometimes, man, you like at work, you just need to get away, or you might, you know, like after a tough loss. But like, where is your happy place? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, it's funny too because you know normally my happy place is watching college basketball. I'm a junkie. I really am a junkie, and so I watch other teams all the time. But I remember as a head coach, and we went through one really terrible season at Cornell where we got injured and we lost games constantly. And so my happy place became watching movies. And I've watched probably every movie under the sun. And it don't matter if it's the movies in the theater, because I love eating the popcorn in the theater. I'll go by myself. I don't care. My wife be looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go to the movies. You know, that's my happy place. When I need to get away from the stress or feeling bad about a loss, I'll just go watch a movie. So at least that takes 2 or 3 hours where I can just relax, not think about the game, try to get into the movie a little bit, enjoy myself a little bit. So I say, yeah, my happy place other than basketball is definitely the movies.
Sound like me, man. Like that. I mean, I used to be to a point like I go to the movie theater, sitting there by myself, sit and just watch a movie. Like you're just so relaxed, man. And you forget about every care in the world, and you just watch a movie. That's all you got to do.
Don't think about the game. Don't think about recruiting. Just keep it moving. Just watch the movie. Yep.
That's true. You like I said, there's been so many things said about you, but I'm gonna let you choose what this time. Like if you had 3 adjectives to describe yourself, which would you choose?
The first one I would say is passionate. I think I'm passionate about everything I do. The reason I'm a college coach is because I love the game of basketball. I love coaching the players. All right, I love being a part of their lives and seeing them grow into young men. You know, where they come from when they come to you, as to where they go after college and after their career's over, and when they get married and when they have a family. The passion that I have for that is unbelievable. Energetic, obviously. I'm a person that's very positive. I try to have energy every day. I think that's important. I don't necessarily like being around negative people. So I try to stay positive. I try to be a person that people want to be around, that people will listen and respect. So I think energetic is definitely one. And then caring. I want to be a person that cares. I think that becomes important. Empathy becomes extremely important. I didn't, you know, I grew up a lot of the ways that a lot of my players grew up without a father, in a single parent household, a mother who had 5 children, who had to scrap and claw, 25 years old with 5 kids, trying to figure out a way to make ends meet, all right? And she figured it out, and she gave me a lot. I had a lot of mentors that gave me a lot. So my job is to pass that on to the next generation of the young men that I coach and I help to raise as men, all right? So that caring and that empathy is an important part of what we're doing. I don't ever want to lose sight of that, all right? No matter what happens in basketball, wins and losses, all that stuff, I want to make sure that I still have that empathy and that caring feeling for our guys, that whatever happens to them, I got their back. I want them to know that. Good or bad. I mean, I'm going to tell you when you do something wrong. I'm going to pat you in the butt when you do something good. But no matter what happens, I got your back.
Awesome, man. I'm going to ask you this, and last couple of questions coming down the stretch. Like, what was the most stressful situation that you faced?
In basketball?
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely that first recruiting trip with Coach Larinaga. Because I was nervous. The gym was so hot, first of all. So I'm sweating like crazy. I mean, I'm sweating through my suit. I just don't know what to say at that point. You know, this is my first really recruiting job, so I'm worried about, is the guy going to fire me? I don't know. And if you know Coach L, especially back then, he was very straight-laced, like look at you in the face and kind of stare through you, right? He would stare through you, and I couldn't be more nervous at that moment. Yeah, I say on the court, definitely my first year at Cornell, right? And so we're playing Penn, all right, at home, and we come down, we're holding for one shot, right? Get tie game. We hold. Chris Bobreski, my point guard, shoots the ball with about 2 seconds to go, right? Bounce off the rim. Our big man, Mark Curry, tips it in. So we think we won the game. The referee, again, no names, who's now a Big Ten official, the referee calls a push in the back on Mark Curry, right? So not only did we not win the game, Penn is now going down to shoot 2 free throws to win the game. How about that? I lost my mind. I mean, people don't understand. When you become a head coach, you lose your mind because you feel everything. You feel all of it. I took off my jacket. I'm throwing it on the floor. I'm cursing out the referee, going bananas. And the other ref, fortunately, comes over and says, Bill, just let it out. Just yell at me. Just yell at me. And I'm just cussing him out. Just cussing him out. Fortunately, the guy for Penn missed the 2 free throws. He missed the 2 free throws. We end up winning the game in overtime. I look at the film that night, and the referee was absolutely right. So as stressful as it was, he didn't end up being right.
Wow. Good stuff, man. All right, listen, and I know this is going to happen. So when you get another shot at being a head coach, are there any changes you would make, like from the type of staff, style of play, type of players from when you were at Cornell, and like what would those be if once you get your program again?
Yeah, I would say 3 things. I mean, obviously you can't control the injury part of it. And that was a big part of what happened to us. What happened to us too is they put the rule in when I was at Virginia Tech, right before I got the Cornell job, where if you graduated, you could play as a grad transfer, all right, which is a huge rule now. Back then, it wasn't that huge a rule. When I was at Cornell, and you know this from the Ivy League, you can only play 4 years. So if you get injured, all right, you're going to graduate, but you're going to have to go somewhere else. So now when that rule comes into play, the first guy I lost was a kid named Eric Pecky, ends up at Purdue. Then I lose Shaw Miller to UConn. Then I lose Dwight Tarr to Cal. So I was like a feeder system for high major teams. So again, nothing you can control there. The things I could control that I would do a little bit differently. In recruiting, we recruited very good players, talented athletes. I would definitely want to do this. Always make sure you have enough shooting, right? Because if you can't put the ball in the basket, it don't matter what you do. In my 5th year, we were in the top 10 in the country in field goal percentage, defense, blocks, steals, everything. But we were a 500 team because we couldn't put the ball in the basket. We couldn't shoot. And so I'd always have enough shooting on the floor when I, again, get my next program. Also, I would make sure, and I mentioned this earlier, you always got to be willing to learn, right? I had a certain way that I wanted to do things, and I would, for the most part, that's the way we're going to do it. But you got to be willing to open up and listen more. I was a little stubborn. I got to listen a little bit more. So that's definitely one thing I would change as far as that. And then as far as style of play, I had a certain style we wanted to play. I would certainly be more flexible. And again, take some lessons from some other head coaches I've been around, I've learned and talked to a lot. I've been fortunate enough for guys that had different systems. I've worked for different head coaches that had different systems. And I would probably take a little bit more from each guy rather than just take it all from one guy or have it all this way or that way. I would definitely be a little more flexible. Even if you look at Coach K, Duke has a system, but he coaches his team depending on his players. His offense is built on what kind of players he has that year. And so I would probably do a little bit more of that than I did before. And again, those things you learn on the job and you try to get better and better. Towards the end of my time at Cornell, I thought I got better at some of those things. And now in the 3 or 4 years since then, I think I've grown even stronger in that regard. And so I definitely think I'll be ready when that opportunity presents itself.
You said something good, like Coach K figured it out how to evolve. Because at one time it wasn't that way. And then I think USA basketball changed a lot with him from a coaching standpoint. So you're 100% on right. The game has evolved. Like, you can't pass, dribble, or shoot. I mean, you could be one of the best defensive teams in the country, but you still got to be able to put the ball in the hole. That's one thing you have to. like last question, I always like to end with this. Knowing what you know now, you've been in it since you were, like you say, young. What would you tell your young self to prepare for one, being an assistant, and then also being a head coach?
That's a very good question. I would say, again, you know, I was lucky, again, in working for Coach L because he taught me how to work hard right away. And so I had the energy and the enthusiasm to do it. And so I was going to work. And so it's funny, I recruited like crazy. I mean, it's funny, and you know this probably more than anybody, Lamar, because you were at Oxon Hill High School, we recruited Lamar Butler, right? Lamar Butler got it going for us at George Mason. I don't care what anybody says. We'd already been to the NCAA tournament twice, but if we don't sign Lamar Butler from Oxon Hill, there's no George Mason making it to the Final Four. There's no all those great players coming and beating Villanova in the tournament and all. None of that happens without the signing of Lamar Butler. And so if I would tell my young self anything, is get more guys like that. Because not only was he a great player and a great ambassador of the program, he was kind of a guy who others wanted to follow, right? So in recruiting, you always want to have guys like that because they're going to pay dividends more than even on the floor at that moment. Like I said, when we had recruiting visits, every recruit went with Lamar Butler, right? Like, I don't care if he was a senior or freshman, whatever it was, what kind of kid it was, Lamar was taking all those kids. And you know, Lamar, he would probably take them over to PG County so they could go to Go-Go's and stuff too. I'm like, man, why you take him to the Go-Go, Lamar? You know, he can't stay out. You know, he can't stay out of Oxon Hill, right? But again, you know, kind of identifying and recruiting leaders is very, very undervalued, I think. Guys that are going to lead your program on the floor, off the floor, other guys are going to follow them. That becomes important because anytime you have a leader, all right, he's going to raise the level of all the other guys. And I think that becomes important. That's something I didn't know as a young guy. I knew, hey, recruit winners, recruit guys that are tough, that are competitors. But recruiting leaders becomes very, very important. And again, I would say the same thing as a head coach. You know, finding guys that are leaders, finding, like I said, to shoot the basketball. But that becomes extremely important.
Awesome, man. Speaking of Lamar Butler, like when he came to me and said, Coach, man, I think I want to go to George Mason. I said, George Mason? I said, like, man, it's no problem because you had Terrence Nixon over there. You know, you guys had Terrence. But I was like, you got Xavier, NC State, Maryland. And now, Coach, I'm going to George Mason. Like, I'm going to lead them to the Final Four. And I was like, you going to lead who to the Final Four? He did it. I mean, he had that vision, way back.
And that, remember I said before, one of the things that I said is dream the big you dream you possibly can. And I stole that from Coach L. Me and Coach L used to go into those kids' home. We used to go in Lamar's home, Will Thompson home, Following Campbell, John Lewis, all those kids. We used to go in and say, we can make the Final Four. You know, we can do this. Why not us? You know, that's what we used to tell those kids. And it certainly came to fruition. But again, it took those kids believing in that. And you look at it, it was all kids from D.C. area, from the DMV. Every single kid, all 5 starters from Maryland. All right, we didn't. Coach L would be mad at me. We'd be recruiting, right, and we'd be, getting a summer plan together. He's like, "Yeah, I'm about to go to Vegas and Orlando." I said, "Nah, Coach, you going to the High Point Summer League, bro?" I said, "You ain't doing all that. We going to the High Point Summer League and get Lamar Butler. We gonna recruit Phil Goss and Delonte West and all those guys." I said, "That's why our bread's gonna be buttered." And fortunately enough, again, we were able to sign some very, very high character kids, very good players. That led George Mason to the Final Four.
Yeah, you had some really good kids. John Vine later on, like you just did a great job with that, man. And to see that, like I remember early mornings, you and Coach L in the gym, 7 a.m. workout. So I mean, y'all guys did a great job with him, and that was just to see George Mason do what they did was awesome, man. But look, Bill, man, I want to thank you again, man, for being a guest on the show and being unmasked. Anything you want to say before we go to the viewers?
Yeah, I would say, and again, this is more towards especially the young guys that are in this business. It may seem hard at times, but keep pushing forward. Keep pushing forward. For all the young guys, don't get discouraged. If you do your job, the just rewards will come. You don't necessarily have to self-promote and do all these things. Just do your job as well as you possibly can. And that leads to the next opportunity.
Awesome, man. Great jewel to end on. So I want to thank you, viewers, for watching another great show. Stay tuned for the next guest as we get them unmasked. See you next time and stay safe.